Welcome back to the podcast. Today I want to take you deeper, really deep, into the first few moments after the cruel prison gate slammed shut behind me. Close your eyes and picture America. Perhaps a biting winter morning in an old industrial town in the Northeast, where snow blankets every corner, or maybe the harsh, blinding sun of a remote desert in Arizona, where only sandstorms and cacti remain. Wherever it is, that cold, empty feeling not only seeped through the loose-fitting clothes they gave me, but also gnawed at my heart, making it tighten with loneliness and a profound sense of alienation. 6 years. 6 long years I lived in a world stripped of all freedom, where time seemed to stop, and every day was a pale copy of the one before. During countless sleepless nights on that cold metal bed, I clung to, I imagined over and over, the moment I would breathe free air again. Look up at a vast sky no longer blocked by barbed wire. I dreamt of the tight embrace of my frail mother, the awkward but loving smile of my young child, or at the very least, the compassionate glance of an old friend, ready to pull me from the abyss. But reality, like a cold splash of water on my fragile hope, was brutal and suffocating. When that massive iron gate, with the words State Correctional Facility, etched deeply like a curse, slowly opened and then slammed shut behind me, all I saw was an expanse of unfamiliar and terrifying emptiness. No one was waiting. No familiar face appeared. It was just me, standing alone in the harsh early morning, perhaps with a worn-out canvas backpack holding a few personal belongings and a crumpled certificate of release from prison in my pocket, symbolizing the community reintegration society granted me. I vividly remember the weight of my feet, as if they were shackled by chains, unable to lift. I stood frozen there for what seemed like an hour. My mind was empty, with no thoughts, no plan. 6 years. Enough time for a child to grow into a young adult. Enough time for relationships to fade and break. The streets I once knew in the bustling downtown have probably changed beyond recognition. The coffee shops where I used to chat with friends might have closed or given way to soulless chains. I was completely lost in the very city I once called home, like someone stepping onto a foreign planet, trying to decode signs and languages I no longer understood. The bus stop was not far away, perhaps a simple glass shelter with cold metal benches, but that few hundred meters felt endless, like an arduous journey with no destination in sight. Each step was a monumental effort, not only because my body was worn out from years of forced labor, but because of the weight of the past, the sins I could never wash away, the emotional scars that throbbed whenever I tried to lift my head. I knew the prison gate was behind me, but another gate, invisible and stronger, had opened before me, trapping me in my own loneliness and guilt. Finally, I made my way to the bus stop. Sitting alone on a cold plastic seat, watching people of all races and walks of life hurry by. Men in sharp suits with shiny leather briefcases, young mothers with babies on their backs, homeless people wrapped in thin blankets. I felt like a ghost, invisible, someone who didn't belong in this world. Everything around me was hurried, bustling, and vibrant, in stark contrast to the stillness and gloom I had just stepped out of, like a colorful painting I could only view through a foggy glass. I had no home to return to. During the years I was behind bars, the small apartment I used to rent was probably taken by someone else. The memories of modest dinners with family, now just old film reels in my mind. I had no job, because that felony record would forever be a black mark on my record, a life sentence never erased in the eyes of employers, no matter how deeply I regretted or how hard I tried to prove my change. And the most painful part, gnawing deep within my bones, was that I had lost faith in myself. Was someone like me, with such a tarnished past, still worthy of hope? A chance to start over in a country that people often speak of for its forgiveness and compassion. After wandering aimlessly, perhaps walking down dilapidated streets with closed shops and dim bars, I finally found a small room in a shabby building on the outskirts, a place where poor workers and drifters often crash for the night. It was a cramped, damp room, with the stench of cigarettes and sweat mingled with the smell of cheap floor cleaner. The peeling walls, cracked like a spider's web, and the weak, yellowish light from a hanging bulb only added to the desolate, lonely atmosphere, like an old matchbox that had been forgotten. On the first night in what was supposed to be freedom, I couldn't sleep. The terrifying silence of the room, broken only by the steady drip of a rusty faucet in the bathroom and the faint squeaks of a rat running across the ceiling, was in sharp contrast to the noisy chaos inside my mind. The regrets, the remorse, the anxiety about an uncertain future overwhelmed me, denying me a moment of peace. I tossed and turned on the thin mattress, trying to find a deep sleep to escape the harsh reality. But it was useless, like a wounded bird trying to fly into the sky. The days that followed were a continuous string of disappointment and humiliation. I knocked on doors everywhere, willing to take any job, no matter how dirty or difficult, just to earn a few bucks to survive and send some money to my young son living with my mother. From begging for a job as an errand boy in a noisy workshop, to washing dirty dishes at a greasy roadside diner, or even trying to work on a dusty construction site mixing cement under the scorching sun. But just a glance at the criminal record box on the application, and their gaze immediately turned cold and skeptical, and the doors of opportunity slammed shut in my face, like an invisible wall separating me from the rest of society, reminding me that I would always be marked, an outsider. I remember one time, I nearly got hired as a janitor at a large hospital. The manager, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, said she believed in redemption and second chances. I silently thanked fate for someone finally offering me a chance. But when it came to the background check, she called me into her office with a sad expression. She didn't say much, just gently shook her head and handed my file back to me, like a rejection that needed no explanation. I understood. That past would always haunt me, like a shadow that never left. The bitter rejections, the scrutinizing and disdainful glances, the cold indifference of those around me slowly eroded my will and the fragile belief I had left. There were nights when I lay awake on the creaky bed, staring at the damp ceiling, wondering if I truly deserved to live, if I could escape this endless cycle of stigma and despair. I once thought about returning to that familiar world behind bars, where at least I knew what to do and what would happen next, where I didn't have to face the coldness and indifference of the outside world. But then, in those moments when I felt like I was about to completely give up, I remembered the words of a prison friend with whom I shared my bitterness during those long years, probably an older black man with a warm voice and eyes filled with sorrow. "Son, the only person who can truly forgive you is yourself. You gotta carry your past, but don't let it bury your future." Those words were like a faint light breaking through the dark night, pulling me back from the edge of surrender, reminding me that no matter how dark my past was, I had to keep fighting, even if it was just by myself. I began to learn to accept who I am now, with all my scars and mistakes. I reached out to a small community center in the suburbs, where volunteers help ex-offenders reintegrate into society. There, under compassionate eyes and sincere encouragement, I felt like I was no longer alone. They helped me find work, guided me on how to write a resume and behave in interviews. I started attending group counseling sessions, where I heard similar stories and shared my own struggles. In the warm and open space of the community center, I began to regain some faith in myself and in the future. I started learning basic life skills I had missed during my impulsive youth. I learned how to manage finances, how to communicate effectively, and most importantly, how to forgive myself. I also found a part-time job at a small grocery store, stocking shelves and assisting customers. It was a tough job with little pay, but it gave me a sense of purpose, a feeling of belonging to the community. On those late evenings after work, when I returned to my lonely room, I opened my old journal and wrote. I wrote about the challenges I faced that day, about the small efforts I made, and about the faint glimmer of hope in my heart. I also wrote letters to my son, telling him about my new life, about my efforts to become a better father. Though the replies were still cold and distant, I kept writing because I believed that time and sincerity would heal all wounds. Time passed slowly but steadily. My life was still full of challenges and hardships, but I no longer felt as alone as I did before. I had found a community of people who understood and empathized with what I had been through. I had learned to accept the past, live for the present, and hope for a better future. I realized that true freedom wasn't just about stepping out of the prison gate. It was the freedom of the soul, the freedom to face myself and continue striving to change. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story filled with ups and downs. I hope that, even just a little, my heartfelt sharing today has touched your heart, or perhaps offered a different perspective on those who are trying to find themselves again after their fall. If you feel that this story has meaning, please don't hesitate to share it with someone you think needs to hear it. Maybe a friend who's struggling, a family member who's lost faith, or anyone feeling alone on their path. And if you want to continue following these sincere and profound shares from this podcast, please remember to subscribe to our channel. Your support is a huge motivation for me to continue sharing other stories, other sides of life that perhaps few dare to speak. Don't forget to like this video if you feel it adds value. Finally, please share it with those you believe it can touch and bring some hope. We will return with the next episodes of the podcast, bringing different stories and diverse human experiences on the journey to seek redemption and a better life. Once again, thank you for listening. I wish you a wonderful day and always keep faith in the good things ahead.